We live in interesting times. So one of my friends in the congregation has come to frequently say, at times specifying that by interesting he means bad. Indeed, with the last month's concern over who and when someone we know will be afflicted with the COVID-19 coronavirus, self-isolation to slow its spread, and the resulting anxiety of when it all will end so life can return to normal, it's as if life's response to this Lenten season's call for self-discipline and reflection was, hold my beer. I don't mean to make light of COVID-19's lethality, for I have at numerous times in the last few weeks found myself pacing in my living room when taking breaks from working at home, or at least working as best I can. While only a half-conscious act, that need to move, to do something, springs from the depth and mix of emotions that most of us feel right now. But what do we do? It's very easy to feel helplessly trapped in a time like this. In looking at the first part of this week's reading from Luke, I find a parallel of sorts to my pacing in the breastfeeding that we see from the women who follow Jesus as he carries the cross, with the help of Simon of Cyrene, to Golgotha. The physicality of their action speaks to their deep distress to do something, but it also is a deeply symbolic gesture. Beating of the breast is not a practice that we Lutherans incorporate into worship, but in an online video series on words and actions, Bishop Christopher Coyne explains how within Catholic tradition, breastfeeding is part of the service of confession, accompanying the words, through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. Coyne then ties breastfeeding not just to the expression of deep emotion, but also to the proximity of the chest to the heart, with the heart symbolizing the source of all that is good and bad in a person. Beating of the breast, then, is a recognition of our sinfulness. Jesus' response to these women does not deny their grief, but also begins to point them beyond it. Do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Our Lenten study materials interpret this statement as a blessing, although a very strange one. The barren, those whose hope for children is ended before it can even begin. For such a condition to be a blessing points to truly horrible circumstances if life ending with oneself is the best hope. The effect of these words, then, may be to point the women back to thinking about what is good now, even in their distress. That Jesus' words come from his mouth as a condemned man, in that moment being led off for his execution, all the more asks the question, what is good for you now? And what will you do with that good? Even at this lowest of low moments, Jesus does not wallow in self-pity. Jesus continues to direct people forward, even as he is doomed because of human sinfulness, as seen through his words in the second part of this week's reading, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. The act of forgiveness, while acknowledging wrongdoing, also looks forward. This second part of tonight's reading points us toward another Christian symbol that from a human perspective seems incongruous. Crucifixion as a sign of hope. In our worship and daily lives, we are used to seeing crosses and crucifixes, sometimes elaborately decorated. Because of our familiarity with these symbols, we do not always stop to remember that in their origin they were used for torture and shame. Many of us have heard descriptions of the painfulness of crucifixion, but Luke and the other gospel writers actually place the humiliation of being mocked while helpless at the forefront of the picture. Tonight's second reading continues. The leaders scoffed at Jesus, saying, he saved others, let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one. But the example of Jesus is to look beyond such evil to point towards something better. In the midst of this pandemic, it is difficult to say what, if any, good will come of this time. We can already say, though, that these weeks have been memorable, as we've looked for ways to fill our days. In being memorable, the activities we've engaged in will become symbols of sorts that will always remind us of these weeks and months. I've had to make myself very conscious of not only when and how much I'm working, but also of reflecting, relaxing, and exercising. To these ends, I've made a much more deliberate effort to take my dogs for a walk each day. They enjoy it, but it's not just about having the time and the necessity. The warming weather better allows it too. I'm looking for tree buds and spring flowers. I can't speak to my relief at seeing the crocuses in front of my house emerge. I've also taken time to sit on my back deck, feeling the breeze and the sunshine, and listening to the returning songbirds. These signs of the turning of the seasons are all the more timely as we've felt entombed by quarantine. And it is a powerful reminder that the placement of Lent and Easter at the end of winter and the beginning of spring is in itself a symbol of coming resurrection. Amen.